Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, our special guest is former U.S. Attorney Doug Jones. Also, the V-Team takes a look at Senate swamp creatures. And Attorney General Steve Marshall, he needs money.
You have to think of the main objective.
Naturally, it doesn't do to be fussy.
BCA, lobbyists, business A, business C, business D. He doesn't care. He just needs more money. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V-Team. Welcome all.
Good morning.
Hello, hello. Hello. We apparently dressed alike today.
And then opposite here. So
I know, yeah.
I didn't know whether to go ladies in red or red alert, but either way, y'all look lovely.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, Jack, you look handsome as well.
Oh, that's great.
I like that purple tie.
Well, you know how many more payments.
It's always crazy season here in Montgomery, but I have to say, there were such high hopes for Steve Marshall as Attorney General, excuse me, and yet he is taking money, Susan, from folks that it just seems like it's unseemly, and we've been writing about it, and you've been looking at these campaign contributions. Tell us
I have, and I have to say I'm quite disappointed with some of the moves he's made and some of the friends he's made. We looked initially and found where he had received some money from a lot of the Fine Getty PACs, which the only real contributors to those are Drummond, Jimmy Rain, and Protective Life.
And listen, nothing against these folks, not at all. These are good people doing their job.
Absolutely. But it kind of looks funny, but then later this month, in fact, this last week, I found where he had actually taken money from a Ted Hosp PAC, which is a good PAC.
And Ted Hosp,
called Good PAC.
Called Good PAC. Thank you, Jack.
And Ted Hosp is a lawyer with Maynard Cooper Gale. He is a lobbyist. He has done a lot of work on ethics, Beth, not in a good way.
Writing about how to get around the ethics laws.
Yeah.
I mean, but the thing is, this is like the fox guarding the hen house right now. And this just shows all the more reason why. I mean, the fact is, if Steve Marshall is going to run for re-election or run for other office, he needs to be able to solicit contributions just like anybody else. But this is why ethics needs to be taken out of the control of the AG in terms of reforming these bills. It needs to be put into a commission of citizens, legislators, everybody coming into one place and saying, okay, how can we make these laws work? Because this is just making it where he can be bought out.
Well, Jack, it concerns me because, Ted Hosp, while he's just doing his job, he represents folks who would like to weaken the ethics laws. And Steve Marshall has not stood up for the ethics laws. It's got to give people like Mike Duffy and Matt Hart a little heartburn to see this going on.
Well, I really don't know. Maybe I don't come down as hard on this as y'all do, but, you would like to think in an ideal system that you could take money from any entity and not compromise your principles just because those people gave you a contribution. I don't think Ted Hosp is a bad guy, and I know y'all don't either, but he did send a letter around trying to, tell people how to get around this ethics law that they passed in 2010. I have a little heartburn over that, but the fact that he takes money from his PAC is not something that gives me heartburn.
Well,
it's just something that doesn't smell particularly right with me. He should be able to take money from everywhere, but this is Montgomery. We do know how this system works down here, and a lot of times that comes with a price tag, unspoken or not.
Well, in my worldview, friends and family donate money, PACs, lobbyists, lawyers, industry, they invest money.
Well, that is a very good point. And I think Steve Marshall, and we all love, I don't know about you, Beth, but I know Bill and Susan and I know and really like Bob Getty a lot.
Oh, yes.
And Joe Fine, they are great guys.
Some of the best guys you'll ever meet.
But I think it would probably have been wiser on Marshall's part not to take money from a PAC where Drummond has invested, just because of what's going on in the Birmingham situation.
That's right. And again, it's nothing against these folks. These are good folks doing their job.
Their job. That's all they're doing is doing their job.
As Attorney General is a little different than running for, say, agriculture or even governor.
Right. Absolutely.
Well,
because some of these people
I am a pro-gambling Republican, and I think there are a hell of a lot more of us than people give us credit. I want somebody that I'm going to vote for that is not anti-gambling.
Yeah.
I think what they've done to Milton, and of course they've kind of left Greene County alone, but what they've done to Milton is disgraceful.
Well, they went after him because he gave money to Democrats.
Right. But it's still pending. I mean, there's still the sort of Damocles hanging over their heads. They never know when it's going to come down, if it's going to come down.
Oh, I know.
And that's got to be miserable.
Well, I don't think Marshall's done a bad job as Attorney General. He hasn't done much.
But he came in on the heels of 3 humongous ethics scandals, basically. And came in and just looked the other way, where there are gaps in our ethics laws. There's huge problems with them. And if he wanted to really mitigate some of the question about taking this money, he would come out and do the right thing on the ethics laws, and then nobody would wonder if there's a conflict because he's done the right thing by the people while he's cashed the lobbyist check.
Right, and there you go. That's pretty.
It.
I want to get to something else. We only got about 2 minutes. Jeff Sessions, one of the most respected politicians in Alabama, Jack, has been under fire by President Donald Trump. I know you're a Trump supporter.
I am.
But this thing I've heard from Republicans all throughout the state going, I'm conflicted on this because Jeff Sessions is such a great guy, has done Donald Trump's bidding, and now Donald Trump is acting like a schoolyard bully.
Well, you know, I really wish Trump would be a little bit more discerning in his tweets. In fact, I wish they'd take his damn cell phone away from him. But the only thing that concerned me was the word beleaguered that he used the other day, referring to Sessions. I personally think, and I'm not a conspiratorial kind of guy, I think it's a smokescreen. I think he's trying to make everybody believe there's a feud between him and Sessions to kind of separate the two. But Sessions was just assigned the task of plugging these leaks that are coming out of the intelligence community.
Well, I don't buy that, Jack, and I love you to pieces, but I don't buy it because the guy came out and said the only reason Sessions supported him is because he saw the big 40,000 people crowd, and so he wanted to jump on that bandwagon.
But Sessions was the first senator to endorse him.
And Sessions doesn't need Donald Trump's vote.
No, of course he doesn't. He's in Alabama. He's a Republican. He's safe.
In fact, if anything, Sessions got Donald Trump the votes in Alabama to a great degree.
I mean, there were a lot of people that were cruise guys and all that.
Like Mo Brooks.
He was with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer the whole time, Jack. That's what they said on the TV.
Anyway, we got about 30 seconds. And the thing that bothers me, though, is, look, if you want to fire the guy, fire him. Don't act like a bully and start calling him names.
Well, he can't fire him. That would just be a big blow up. Maybe. If y'all's theory is right, maybe by all these public comments, he's trying to make Jeff feel like he has to resign.
Well, I hope he doesn't. I hope he stays there. Richard Shelby.
He's never poked an Alabama bear before then.
That's right. I can't see him resigning.
I don't want him to resign.
No, I don't either. Anyway, there you go. It's chaos in Washington. Who thunk that one up?
Never happened before.
All you never Trumpers thunk it up.
I've never been a never Trumper. I'm just a. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back with more news and analysis. voice of Alabama politics. Our special guest today is former U.S. Attorney Doug Jones, and you're running for the U.S. Senate as a Democrat.
Yep. Thanks for having me, Bill.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Glad to have you. You're running for the U.S. Senate to fill the seat that was vacated by now Attorney General Jeff Sessions. You have a long history as a prosecutor. You took on a case at 40 years old, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But why are you running, and do you think a Democrat can win?
You know, Bill, it's a great question, and people ask me that all the time. I think I'm running because I think the state needs new leadership. We have seen that a one-party state in the state just does not work. We have seen corruption abound. We have seen people removed from office. People want to have trust in their leadership. They want transparency. They want trust. And I think we can offer that. And I think people are looking for a change. They want to see the checks and balances. And they want to talk about the issues that mean much. This health care bill that's going on right now, I think has galvanized people to start focusing on issues rather than parties. And when that happens and people focus on issues, I think Democrats not only have a shot at winning, I think we will win.
Almost bringing about this, you know, excuse me, almost half of the births in Alabama fall under Medicaid.
Exactly.
And we have single mothers and children that need Medicaid. They're working.
Absolutely.
Mothers,
absolutely.
But they can't get it. But currently, the plan is to cut Medicaid.
It's to cut Medicaid, and we were wrong not to expand Medicaid. We are a poor state. We're an unhealthy state, and we're not doing a lot to address those issues alone. We needed the expansion of Medicaid. It would have helped those people. It would have helped the economy. We doggone don't need to have it cut. And it's not only the poor people. It is children. It is children across the state. And one thing, a collateral consequence of that, if you cut Medicaid, you're going to cut access to health care in rural areas of the state, which is predominantly most of the areas of this state. Rural health care providers are going to close up shop, go to the cities, and most people in those areas are not going to be able to get that. That's a consequence of a Medicaid cut that people don't fully appreciate, except if you're living in that small town.
Do you, and I know this seems a little crazy, but I think the facts will bear it out, that people were against Obamacare, but they're all for the Affordable Care Act.
There's no question.
You know?
It had nothing to do with the legislation. Anything that was attached, that had President Obama's name attached to it, had been demonized so much in this state without regard to the facts. And people bought a bill of goods. And now, the good thing about the focus now, people are beginning to focus on exactly what is in the bill that was passed, how it might need to be tweaked, and what is in the bill and not in the bill that is currently pending in the Congress. And folks are concerned.
I think the Medicaid issue, the Affordable Care Act issue, people have not yet realized how much impact that's going to have on the state of Alabama.
Oh, it's going to be huge. If we lose Medicaid, if we lose the things that have been put in place by the Affordable Care Act, it's going to be devastating to the people of the state. And that's what I think people are realizing now, except for your leaders in Congress. And they do not seem to be realizing that. At least the Senate leadership does not seem to be realizing or even care about what's happening to the actual people in their state. They prefer to give tax cuts to their wealthy friends.
Yeah, and you go back to balance. We talk about children. You know, in 1963, right, 4 black young children were murdered at the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham. 40 years after the fact, you were the man who brought those murderers to justice. I mean, what was that like?
It was an unbelievable experience. I tell lawyers all the time, I wish every lawyer could have a case that meant so much to so many people. It really, truly changes you, not just as a lawyer, but as a person. And since those convictions, I travel all around the country, getting the story out, not just about those cases and pulling them together, but also talking about Alabama and how we've changed and how we have a diverse society, and we try to do the right thing by people. And I think that that's the message from those cases. We see so much hate coming out of politicians these days. They don't always mean it to be hateful speech, but it ends up being that bait. And hateful speech can have consequences, and we need to be careful with that in the future.
You know, the Democratic Party in Alabama especially has been marginalized to such a large degree. I mean, half the people that now sit in the state House were Democrats.
Exactly.
But they're white, so they switched, and making the Republican Party the all-white party and trying to make the Democratic Party all black. But it's really not the case. It's just you're not being able to get your message out.
I think Democrats in the past have kind of lost sight of what that message is, and it's about the kitchen table issues. That's what we're talking about in this campaign. It's about health care. It's about education for your children. It's about a living wage, that it's time that we start moving that minimum wage up to a living wage. Issues that mean so much to so many people. And I think the health care debate is now getting people focused in on that we need to focus on issues that affect our family on a daily life. And when they do that, Bill, we're not only going to have a chance, we're going to win.
Well, if you can't eat, I mean, well,
right.
if you're not healthy, and you can't eat, and you can't get an education, it's just the future is just out of. There is no future.
Absolutely.
But the Democrats, don't you feel you have to do a better job at getting your message out and saying, look, yes, we stand for the working people. Right now, the Republicans own that space.
Absolutely. There's no question about that. I think you saw that a little bit the other day in Congress where they have a template for an economic recovery that Democrats, it's a start. I'm not sure I agree with everything in there, but it is certainly a start. And that's where the message, I think, in this Senate campaign is going to be. It's certainly, it is with us. If you look at what's going on the Republican primary right now, you don't hear any substance. You don't hear any substance at all. We're going to be taking it to the issues, and people are responding.
Top issues for you? We got about 1 minute left.
The top issue right now, today, is health care. I mean, everybody is focused on health care. I think jobs in the economy is an issue, and that income gap, we need to get that living wage up. The other thing that kind of cuts across the strata is education, but also issues that affect the women in this state. That is a big thing. There are so many single moms that need their health care for their kids. There are so many. We need equal pay. I was honored to get the endorsement of Lilly Ledbetter the other day. Equal pay for equal work. I think women's issues are a very, very important part of what this campaign is going to be about through December.
Well, we wish you all the luck in the world, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Bill. Sure appreciate it.
All right. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. Our guest today has been former U.S. Attorney and Democratic candidate for the U.S. Senate, Doug Jones. Stay put. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Susan, it had been rumored for the last several months that Billy Canary had made some real enemies in Washington, D.C. We now can confirm top sources within the districts are saying that he is persona non grata among the Alabama delegation, especially where the Senate's concerned.
Yeah, from what we're hearing, he's been told not to call, not to drop by the office, that he's not welcome anymore. And it's spreading among the associations in Alabama as well, as if they're doing any kind of deals with him, that's not a good thing. So it seems like everybody's beginning to back away from Canary at this point.
Well, Jack, we talked to several people this week who said that they had received a call that said, listen, this is not a threat. You can continue to do business with BCA at your will, but this is the lay of the land.
Well, I've never been a Billy Canary fan, and the way he acted with not inviting people to the BCA annual conference because they took issue with a few of the bills that he supported is so elementary and so childish, and he has acted like a petulant kid, and I think people are sick of it, and he's getting his comeuppance.
I mean, Beth, you don't like any of them, but what do you think?
I mean, I just think there's a very low bar for swamp creatures in D.C., and Billy Canary is kind of the quintessential swamp monster. I mean, look at the way that he acted. He demonstrated no integrity whatsoever during the Hubbard trial with the selective amnesia thing he had going. He probably, I don't know, he could have been indicted on that if he hadn't taken a plea deal or some other kind of, I don't know how he got out of trouble on that one. But it just, I look at it as, I don't understand why he still has a job. I don't understand how he's able to effectively lobby for the BCA if he's not able to communicate with people and cut deals.
And he wasn't effective this last legislative session. They only got 1 out of the 5 bills that they were looking for. So he's got 1 for 4 on there.
But apparently this autism loss was a much bigger deal than we thought it was.
Well, and people are still going to make the pilgrimage down there next month to kiss the ring and drink it. I mean, Jack, how much booze do you have to drink to have no shame to go sit down with a guy like this?
I don't know. I went to, when I was a member of BCA back in 2010, I went to the conference. It was very informative and fun. They had people that, they had the guy that does the focus groups on Fox News, and I think Peter Hart, the Democrat pollster, was there. I mean, it was a very good conference, and you see a lot of good people, but I really think that when Hubbard was in power and he got a big head over there, he just hadn't been the same since.
Well, and the guy's from out of state. Come on, let's be honest. I mean, he's not just from out of state, he's from New York.
I think somebody called him a carpetbagger yesterday.
Yeah, they did. They said he should pack up his carpet bag and go home.
Yep.
Which means Laura Canary would leave RSA, presumably, even though Dr. Bronner said she was a very valuable leader. I have never heard in my entire life anybody ever call her a leader. And
No.
Ever.
No.
But evidently she's doing a good job over there.
Well, she led the charge to ban a movie from being shown at the Capri. So
That's true.
She led in that regard.
Twice she got that vote.
She got it.
Well, they didn't vote but once. The second time, it was never allowed to come up for a
You know,
vote.
and that's crazy. You
I
can't
know
show, you can't rent a theater and show a movie about Don Siegelman. I talked to the filmmaker, and he said, look, we tried to be as fair as possible. I don't know if it's true. I haven't seen the film. But you know what? We're going to try to get that film, and APR and the V are going to sponsor it based on First Amendment grounds.
You heard it here first.
Saying that, you know, people should not be blackballed or not allowed to show a film just because one person doesn't like it. Well, I don't give a poop
that.
what they think.
Well, it didn't shed her in a very good light, I'm told. I haven't seen the movie. But she's on the board of the Capri Theater in Montgomery, which shows a lot of, you know, off the beaten path kind of movies.
Yeah.
And someone here was going to rent the movie theater for one afternoon for one showing. She pitched a fit, and so the board caved into her.
But my understanding, Bill, is that this is a documentary. This is not a pro Siegelman. This is not a pro anything. It's just a straight down the line film that documents the events as they happen so that people can really see what it was about.
One guy's...
Yeah.
Of course it is, but still.
And I don't know I don't know if the movie's fair or not. I don't care.
Right, that's the point.
The thing is, we have a right to view such things.
Exactly.
And APR and the V is going to stand up and say, as Americans, as Alabamians, we can watch this show and not be afraid that it'll take us. You know, I mean, really.
It shows that the Canaries are acting like 2-year-olds about everything. And, you know, under Bentley's administration, I think they were able to get away with it, especially Billy, because Hubbard was running the show. He was effectively the governor. But under Kay Ivey's administration, you know, she's throwing some locks down on this kind of stuff. But I haven't seen her stand up to Billy Canary yet, and I'd be really curious to see if she does it.
She won't.
Well, I don't think she will either.
She set up to some lobbyists, but...
Yeah, she didn't have the backbone.
Well, you know what? I believe this time Canary has gone too far. I think when you get someone the stature of Richard Shelby or somebody like that doesn't want you around, I don't see how you survive.
Pretty tough.
Or Bill Britt.
I don't know about that, but you know that's where I'm coming from. Jack, we got some polls out there, some new polling numbers that say that Luther Strange has hit 35, Roy Moore is down somewhere around 25, and Mo Brooks has slipped. Mo takes issues with that poll.
He shouldn't after yesterday. He was on my radio show and totally caved on the Trump issue and didn't back up from anything that you hear on those TV spots that Luther has done and radio spots, and it really hurt him.
But ideologically, there's not much difference between Mo Brooks and Donald Trump. It's just a matter of I think they
how
have
much hair they have.
Well, when you take issue with the president on the wall, you take issue with him on work permits, you take issue on him with the way he's treated Sessions. We've already discussed that. And there was one other thing, and our phones lit up. But I think this poll's accurate. I think Luther has spent so much money, and the PAC, the super PAC has spent a ton of money. I can't see that he's not in first place. Roy Moore has had no media that I know of.
And Mo's cutting into his base up in North Alabama. Right. But we only got about 30 seconds, but I think this is interesting. Stan Pate, one of the wealthiest people in Alabama, and certainly not afraid of anybody. He's supposedly coming with a big buy against Luther.
Right. I believe the name of it is it Drain the Swamp? It's
swamp drainage.
Swamp drainage, I think it is. Coming with a big buy, and it's basically anybody but Luther. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the message that's coming out.
Let's see if it, I mean, he's going to tie him to Bentley. Let's see if it's too little too late.
Well, if they've produced it as an effective ad, it will have an impact. Okay. If he spends the kind of money.
If Stan Pate is going to, come after you, I think you should be concerned.
Absolutely.
All right, we have to leave it right there. If you'd like to see more of our segment with former U.S. Attorney Doug Jones, go to alreporter.com, click on the V. You can see more with him. We want to thank you for watching the V, the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them. Welcome back to the V, the special session. Our guest today is former U.S. Attorney Doug Jones and candidate for the U.S. Senate under the Democratic banner.
Absolutely.
Great.
Thank you.
That's a rarity.
You're going to see more and more, though, Jack.
Yeah, well, I know.
The last Democrat elected to the Senate in Alabama was Hal Heflin.
That's correct.
And you worked for him.
I worked for Senator Heflin his first year. I worked in the campaign, 1978, so I'm really kind of dating myself. I worked that first year on the Senate Judiciary Committee, one of the most exciting things I've ever done. And you learn a lot working at the foot of Hal Heflin.
Was that the days of Mike House?
That was the days of Mike House. We were all green, learning everything about it. But watching Heflin work both sides of the aisle and listening to people and working his constituents and listening to those folks, it really was remarkable.
He was a gifted Politico. You got trained under a really special guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that was a kind of a different time, really. I mean, you don't look at the Senate now and see these towering giants. At least I don't. I mean, there's some good senators, but I mean, where are the Hal Heflins or what was your Eric Dirksen, Everett Dirksen,
great statesman.
Yeah.
Who was in his own right as much responsible for passing the Civil Rights Act as Lyndon Johnson was. I mean, without his votes.
And his son-in-law, Howard Baker.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Beth, how does it feel to have a candidate that stands a chance?
Oh, I'm so excited. I've been a huge fan of Doug's for forever. You know, back when I was College Gym's president, I met Doug when he came and spoke at a dinner for us, and
I remember that.
We've stayed in touch ever since,
Absolutely.
And you've always been such a big help for whatever we've needed to do.
Well, I just appreciate all the help, and the young Democrats. Look, we've got such a great group of folks coming up in this Democratic Party that they care. Beth has been part of that. They care about the issues. They care about people. There's a lot of good things in store for the Democratic Party in the future.
Do you think there's money to support it? I mean, there obviously have to be changes, but do you think that there are people in the state that are willing to?
Sure. I think there's going to be money in the state. There's going to be money out of the state. This is going to be an important race, I think, Bill. I think people are going to get some attention across the country. This is Jeff Sessions' seat. That in and of itself is going to generate some interest. But I think there's a lot more people, and it obviously is going to depend on who the Republican nominee is. But as we had talked about earlier, I think people are really looking for some change and for some leadership. And they're wanting to see a balance. We've talked about separation of powers. and independent branches of government, but they like to see, basic checks and balances on a political level too. And what we're seeing now is that there are no checks and balances. And I think people are responding to step up to say we need a little bit of a firewall here with all that we see going on in the state and nationally.
Doug, when you travel around, are people talking in your party and even independents you talk to about the arrangement of appointing Luther Strange to the Senate by
absolutely
that whole process with Bentley?
Yeah.
Is that still in the minds of the voters?
It's interesting, Jack, because the people in the Democratic Party and folks like that, they don't care. They are more energized on the issues. But I had a conversation with a fellow the other day that stopped me. I had no idea who he was, told me he generally voted for Republican, and the first thing he said, that whole appointment about Luther Strange just doesn't pass the smell test. There is a concern out there. I think that's coming on the heels of what we saw with Hubbard, with Moore, with Bentley. There's a lot of anxiety about that, and the lack of transparency of what's going on in the health care bill, it just kind of feeds that.
Right. Well, I think we're seeing too the whole thing with the president saying that he appointed Jeff Sessions to be Attorney General, and then he recused himself, and how dare he. It almost mirrors perfectly what we saw here with Strange and Bentley. So maybe the right move is for President Trump to appoint Luther Strange as Attorney General, because he doesn't have any problem selling himself out for a recusal.
That's cold, but I tend to agree.
Yeah, but I would expect no less from Beth.
The Republican Party in Alabama has done a great job of branding. Right. And a lot of them, they don't believe a word they say, they just say it. I mean, so how do you get your message across? How do you take the issues away? How can you take these issues away when everything they said is, oh, you're a baby killer, you want gays in every bathroom, and you don't care about anybody but yourself, and blah, blah, blah,
Bill,
blah,
it's
blah.
a great question. We're going to reframe these issues. We're going to reframe all the issues, including the issues, what I call the kitchen table issues, the issues that mean a lot to people as they talk about with their families. And I think this health care bill is doing that for us. I think everything that's happening in Washington right now on the health care bill, people are beginning to look and see how this is going to affect them. And so that is looking at an issue rather than at a party. So they are doing that for us because it's pretty obvious they don't care about the people when they want to do nothing but pass a health care bill as a political football.
Where do you see yourself coming down as a Democrat, as a progressive, as a traditional liberal, or as a conservative Democrat? Could you brand yourself?
I'm not going to try to brand myself. I want to talk to people.
That's a great political answer there, Doug.
I mean, look, again, I learned a little bit from Heflin, okay? So I'm not going to try to brand myself. I'm going to get branded by any opponent I run against. And so I'm going to let that speak for itself. But I want people to listen to me and my issues and what we're talking about. And I think if they do that, they're going to hear a couple of things. One, they're going to hear issues that are important to them that they can relate to. And second of all, I think they're going to hear somebody that even if we don't agree on the issues, we can talk about those issues. I am not one of these people that is my way or the highway. I want to listen. I want to go around the state listening to people. I want to hear their concerns. I want to educate myself. I don't know everything about every issue in this state. And anybody that tries to tell you they do is crazy. I want to learn. I want to listen. And I want to represent everybody as best I can.
Well, like, where are you on the travel ban?
Oh, I think the travel ban is, again, I think it is a political checklist that Trump is doing. I don't think it serves any purpose. It is splitting up families. It is a religious ban, and I am so opposed to religious bans. That is not the issue when it comes to terrorism. Refugees, people like that are not our problem. We're doing a pretty good job in the intelligence community to try to track people that are a threat to the people in this country. It is not folks like that, and I certainly did not do anything that would remotely consider a ban based on somebody's religion.
Well, it seems to me that, and I would agree with you, that that's what it is, but people are afraid.
Yes.
And when people are afraid, They do irrational things, and it's easier to have a us against them mentality. But the Republican Party has made it an issue of us against them.
You don't have Catholics and Jews going around blowing people up. You have Muslims.
Oh, wait a minute.
Right.
I beg to differ with that. If you look at, you have people going around shooting people all the time that are different religions. You know, one of the cases that we did in addition to the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing case, which was a bunch of white guys in the Klan, was Eric Rudolph. He was no Muslim terrorist. He killed a police officer. Timothy McVeigh was not a Muslim. So, you know.
Well, I understand that, but in the modern day, those events happened years ago. Like
Timothy McVeigh didn't happen years ago.
Well, probably 20 years ago.
And so many of the things. But again, we're talking about a lot of what you've seen are people in this country. They're not people in other countries that are moving here for whatever reason. I think the broad brush Muslims like that is just inappropriate. I really do.
Well, I think, too, in a lot of ways, it is scary. It's scary to think that you can go to a movie theater and get gunned down, or in a shopping mall, or any of these places. And I think in a lot of ways, people are looking for a way to say, this is a threat, this is not a threat. They're looking for ways to draw lines in the sand and make things black and white when really it's a lot of shades of gray. It's a lot of shades of gray.
Absolutely.
And I mean, statistically, you're more likely to get gunned down by a straight white man than a Muslim in America.
Or a right-wing, Ku Klux Klan type white supremacist commit much more violence.
Or Bernie Sanders volunteer who shoots people in Virginia.
Well, and the thing is, I always try to tell, Susan and I lived in New York City on 9/11. We heard the plane go over. We had people in the tower. And that was a Keystone Cops event. That will never, something that catastrophic is very likely to never happen again. We've done a better job. And going back to this banning people out of this, we didn't accept Jews during World War II. It cost a lot of lives.
Right.
We didn't want Catholics in this country at one point.
No, we put the Japanese in camps in California.
It's not like we've got a great history of not doing goofy things. It's just, are we sophisticated now to have a system that works on immigration, works on people that come into our country, and stop all the nonsense about.
Well, stop the fear mongering.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
That's what I'm looking at.
It's the fear mongering, and it's an easy political quick fix, and nobody's really addressing the issue. I want to get up there to address the underlying root causes and the issues, and not just to put a Band-Aid on something.
We're running out of time here, but anybody else got any other questions?
We go way back.
Yeah.
Doug and I were in Alabama at the same time. Our fraternity houses were across the street from each other, and
I bet you got some stories.
you have a great reputation, by the way, and I didn't mean to beat up on you about the Muslims.
That's okay.
We can agree to disagree, but I wish you well.
Thank you, Jack. And that's a key point. We can agree to disagree, and we need more of those kind of dialogues instead of just monologues.
Well, the fraternalism in Washington has gone.
Absolutely.
I mean, and that's a shame where you had people like Ted Kennedy going out to dinner with Orrin Hatch. I doubt Orrin had a drink, but I doubt Ted didn't. But they were great friends. It's not like that anymore.
No, it's not.
Reagan and Tip O'Neill used to get together and have a glass of, was it Irish whiskey?
Rye whiskey or Irish whiskey, yeah.
Well, politics is less civil than it ever has been, and I'm afraid we are living in a very bad reality show called Washington, D.C. right now.
I agree with that, and people ask me why I would want to jump into that, but that change has got to start somewhere. Change in the state has got to start somewhere. Change in the country's got to start somewhere. I think we have at least that possibility with this campaign. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for staying around. We wish you all the best.
Good luck,
Thanks
Doug.
so much. Thanks, Jack.
You've been watching The Special Session with our special guest, Doug Jones. Thank you for watching.